Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to another segment of Thursday Night Chats. Yeah, Europa League. Actually, before we went live, James and myself were talking about some serious. There's a serious tint to this Thursday evening Europa League live show here on Canon 4 TV. But we're going to get into this one on the other side of this music intro. Yes, indeed. Yes, Thursday, Europa League action, Jackson. I don't know what I'm talking about, but what I am saying is make sure that you do subscribe to the channel, share the content, and onwards and upwards, as James would say, onwards and upwards. James, how are you, my friend? How you been keeping?
Oh, thank you, Alex. Looking forward to a busy couple of days, which involves what can be called a home game to Eindhoven on a 2-hour train journey from Amsterdam, and then living on Forest at home on Sunday. So it's like I feel a little bit like a kid at Christmas morning with the games coming up, but very excited about the train journey home and sleeping in. Normally, when I come back to watch Arsenal, it involves an early start with a flight from the UK to the Netherlands, but a nice journey home, and hopefully get ourselves into the last 16, and then we're only 7 games away from trophy for the first time since 1994.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I know the show is predominantly supposed to be speaking about Europa League Cup action, and we're going to be talking about the PSV game. But James, very quickly, Southampton, Arsenal, point. I predicted a draw. I said it would be a draw, or I didn't say it was going to be 0-0 or 1-1 or 2-2. But I thought, literally, we have struggled over the last few years against Ralph Hasenhüttl's team. Your thoughts very quickly. Southampton 1, Arsenal 1.
I also predicted a draw, 1-1, but I didn't do a bet for correct score. I was at St Mary's back in April, this 1-0 for a goal from Bednarek. And you can't win them all, as he used to say on Say It and Greasy. And I think the overreaction is a little bit too much. You've got to remember a very, very special case. You've got a World Cup in between. You've got games still home to City and at home to Everton. It's a long old season, as we know only too well. At the end of this season, it will be a successful season.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Short and to the point. That's why James is my friend. Short and to the point. We'll get to the point. All right. So Europa League action. PSV. Ruud van Nistelrooy. James. Thoughts?
Well, he had a bit of a run in Groningen last Sunday. I was about to say last weekend in Dutch. So that's for the Dutch viewers, afgelopen weekend. And 4-2 away to Groningen. And a rude awakening, even though Sangare, it's not an easy job. And I remain, although Van Nistelrooy talks really, really well, he's still relatively inexperienced. They've now lost in Groningen. It's not, and if you think it is, it's not. You've got teams like Sparta and Utrecht having good seasons, have come up and are trying to do their best. Heerenveen are very much final. They dropped points at home to Fortuna Sittard. So somewhat decade now, almost 2 decades. I've always said, Alex, it's an acquired taste. It always has been. It's difficult to kind of really say that you can't win every single game, but to use home advantage against Arsenal, and we need to get that point. We've got points to reach the last 16, 16. I shall be at both Europa League games and also at Bodo Glimt at home. So nice to have done half the group in that respect. Just keep going and we'll see what the future will bring. But I'm hopeful of speaking to you and this channel of and this program of reaction and this podcast. So I hope to do it all the way to the final in Budapest.
Yeah. And actually, on the end of that, that was the main point that James and myself were just talking about before we went live, was there was slight, disruptions, the words of hooliganism with the PSV fans. And I've got to say, and you know me on California TV, I don't hold back. The first one that came to mind was, well, you're talking about the PSV fans, hooliganism. We've got issues over here in the UK about hooliganism. Now, with the Euros 2020, I remember, I think a lot of fans stormed the Wembley Stadium and there was chants for hooliganism. So before we start throwing stones and words at the PSV fans, hooligans, we have massive issues still here. The scourge as well as racism over here in the UK. James, I know we spoke about it before we went live, but your thoughts about the situation, PSV fans, hooligans?
Well, first and foremost, I said on your Ryan's channel as well, they have been banned from away fans of PSV have been here in Amsterdam against Ajax on the 6th of November due to their behaviour at the stand for destruction of stadium property, and also anti-Semitic Amsterdam City Council were the ones that decided that they're not welcome for the away game in Amsterdam, and than 15 years since final fans were allowed here in Amsterdam, and I believe the PSV fans, in the Dutch City Council's words, no longer being welcome. We've got to look inwards towards the problems that we have. I thought the scenes of the hooligan at the Euro 2020 final were nothing short. You touched on the racism element as well. You know, we've got to educate people and let people know their history as well. You know, I was Fulham game when we won 2-1, and I was next to the away fans, and I men singing to Saka, "You let your country down, you let your country down." To which I was, "What were you doing at the age of 19?" Because you can bet your bottom dollar it wasn't taking a championship final. And then he went quiet. I said, "Look, I don't blame Saka nor Rashford for missing." I said, "Well, who I do? If you want to blame somebody, blame the manager to convince them to take a penalty, because an amateur manager wouldn't even do that." And in the words of, when he missed in 1994 for Italy, every player that has the courage to, at any level, needs to be commended. And I think that's what people forget. I just think there is no longer the awareness of what's gone before. On the last segment of Europa League, Alex, we have European finals in consecutive seasons. Now, if you say that to the younger generation, they wouldn't believe you. And I was at Ellen Road on the 16th of October, and I was speaking to an Arsenal worried about the teams that were going to be relegated from the Champions League. And I said, I'm not bothered about them. It's two hoots about them. But I am concerned about Real Betis, Real Sociedad, and if we ended up playing any of those three teams, it would be good night Vienna. But I've often hooliganism first and foremost. You've got to throw the book at the perpetrators, and however young they may be. And in terms of them as well, they've handed out stiff individual sentences, and also at club level, relegate. My idea would be the following: if you have a 38-game league season, and there is a accused and convicted of racism, but at any point they can't come back from that, and so they know that they're going down. And for argument's sake, there's 14 Premier League games passed by. There's a problem at one of the clubs. So I'm not going to give any club name as an example, because I don't want to give any cast any aspersions. But I'm just trying to make the point. If there are 14 Premier League, there is a problem at one of the games where the fans and the club are convicted of racism, receive such a stiff penalty point that they can't come back from it. So their games, as they're obliged to, but they know they're going down. I think that's the only way that in the bud. It also has to be education and be aware. Black player to ever be capped by England at any level was Laurie Cunningham, man had, and Viv Anderson was the first black player to ever play for England in terms of a senior. I interviewed Viv Anderson, Alex. He often spoke about Laurie Cunningham. He said, he was the first one. Me, he said, but Laurie was the first one. He said, and of course there was Steve, but he had good people around him. He's an immensely intelligent, fantastic career. The longevity of him as well. People forget that he played for not just Forest and Manchester United. And in terms of Laurie Cunningham as well, if people are watching and they've never heard of him, well, I suggest you use Google as quickly as you possibly. For the biggest club in the world to love him is the biggest compliment. And we're talking about Real Madrid. And there's a great quote from Mark once that he encountered him. I'm trying to think what club it was. He encountered Laurie Cunningham. He said it was the first time in his life that he heard a footballer speaking another language, and that was Laurie Cunningham. He was absolutely shell shocked because the Spanish of Laurie Cunningham, and people will know about his time at West Brom. And I believe there's a game where look at where West Brom are now. But giving the example of West Brom playing Valencia shreds, and he was signed by Real Madrid, and also played for Rayo Vallecano as well. Wonderful footballer who was sent away from Arsenal, I believe, because we don't want any of that fancy Dan stuff. That fancy Dan stuff led for him to have an amazing which we could have used as well. There's a great documentary on YouTube where his partner at the time, she was in her home, and the match was on TV, and her father was watching the game, and she saw warm up to come on as a sub. So she said to her dad, she said, "Who's that player coming on?" Laurie Cunningham. But she knew him as Paul, because when they used to go dancing in the dance room, he introduced himself as Paul. And just an amazing footballer. Stories, people have to be aware of what's gone before. And I just think in the current days, there's too much of the jumping on the bandwagon. We are only a period of time. You've got to learn as much as you can and enjoy to love the journey and enjoy.
Yeah. James, well said. Again, I know we've spoken extensively about the racism and the hooliganism, not only in Holland, across, the world of football. But do you think at some stage the FA will take the situation serious? Because I was listening to Les Ferdinand the other day. He did an interview about the message being sent out about football's open to everyone. He said, listen, you can talk until the cows come home. But the stats says it in itself. Literally, how many black managers are there in the Premier League? 0. So, do you think the English FA, are taking the situation serious, James? Because you've spoken about, if it were you, you'd have a massive points reduction for whichever club it is. But do you think FA are taking it serious, the racism and hooliganism?
I think they can do more in terms of trainer. Have to have massive courage. Like, for example, Sol Campbell. You're talking about one of the greatest defenders to ever play the game. You would want, if you are a Southend or a Plymouth or a Lincoln or a Colchester, opportunity to employ Sol Campbell, why wouldn't you do it? And first and foremost, why wouldn't? Because managerial successes are completely different to successes as a player, and you need to learn your trade. I mean, if Sol Campbell would have been given time, where would he be now? And we see that Gerrard being sacked. And I've said this, but for UK, Alex, I get the impression that the players we watched growing up, especially in the last 10, 15 years, they can't handle that a player what they can do so easily. But the clue is in the name: manage and coach. Is in the name, to manage and to coach them and to make them feel valued. And I thought that employ the managers. They need to have more courage, pressure, withstand the noise. Because I know fan bases are very passionate, but you're talking about livelihood. You're talking about the ability to make a club great. And managers do love to run before we can walk. I mean, at the Fulham game, you've got Arsenal back at the statue of Tony Adams. But I was in the same away end at Craven Cobra 2018, where people were singing the same. So in a time and a half years, you've got it coming up again because people love to run before they can walk. I think it's a great choice by Aston Villa. I think it's great for Unai Emery, and I was conference today only a little bit where he said the sporting challenge is too big to turn down, and I love things like that because it's just and if you think of the people that have moved mountains to do very special things, if they give him time, I think they will do very well. I think I'm going to put a C cup this year, I reckon.
Well, we're kind of transitioned into the final segment. Unai Emery, the news is out. Anyone's watching now, we're just talking bits and pieces about Europa League Cup action, PSV, and a little bit of Premier League, and a lot about racism and hooliganism. But make sure that you do come into live chat. Let us know your thoughts. But remember, it's only open to paid members. Unai Emery, Aston Villa, and it's not so much. How can I say this? I admire Unai Emery, as a human being, but any human being who, for me, James, has been lambasted, disrespected, every which way but loose. I'm thinking you've got to stand up to the people or the person who's attacking this person. So Unai Emery has been appointed as the head coach at Aston Villa, and I'm thinking, James, Unai Emery, 3 consecutive Europa League Cup titles with Sevilla. PSV, League One title champions. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And actually, James, I'm looking at Arsenal compared to Aston Villa, and I would probably say Aston Villa probably have a better European pedigree than Arsenal in the history. Yeah. Because we spoke last week about Arsenal 28 years and counting. But I'm comparing like for like, Aston Villa to Arsenal. Aston Villa have a better European pedigree than Arsenal.
Well, that we couldn't do in 23 years of trying. And so that, and it's interesting how people say, "Oh, that was years ago." It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Their name is still. Do you think the Real Madrid not count the first 5 then? When you see that you've got 40, I think Villa are a massive football club. I remember my first time at Villa Park, and this was when the away end was opposite to the Holt end, and we were in the lower tier behind. Went to that game when Pires lobbed Michael, and I was just in awe. You go down to take your seat, and you've got staring back at you. You've got the Holt end. Then it's quite a massive football club, and it's a great opportunity for Unai Emery. I'm delighted for him. I really am. I thought the way TalkSport today was how Emi Martinez won't be that he sent out when he wasn't playing for Arsenal. Emi Martinez is now Arsenal, who's hell bent on playing a World Cup. So of course he will want to play every single game before that World Cup. Some of the sections of the media as well are having a go at good evening. Again, there's no need, and I just think that it's just. I used to have so much respect to go abroad and become successful like he did. He must have had his time with Barcelona where he struggled with the language, but he got through it. And finally to Johan Cruyff or Carlos Herrera or somebody else out. Unai Emery only ever said good evening to be polite. He's only trying to be polite. That's it. He could also say, "Yeah, I didn't fancy it today. It's good evening, everybody. This is what I've got to say." And the Villa fans will be quite. Do you remember how proud Arsenal fans were when he did his first press conference in English?
Yeah.
Do you remember how?
Yeah.
Do you remember how proud we all were?
Yeah.
How proud we were that Arsenal in the Basque Country in San Sebastian took the seat and did the whole entire press conference in English.
In English.
We were so proud of him. We were so. I remember people saying "my manager" and "my G" when he's made by saying "I'm watching Peaky Blinders," and maybe that was the pull. Maybe that was the pull for. Maybe that's the pull for him. Who knows? But it just goes to show that you never be the hour. I think that they're looking at Kike Setien as the over from Unai Emery. He managed the Real Betis and I believe Las Palmas as well. So it'll be interesting to see how. Yeah, I'm really pleased for him.
Yeah,
I'm really pleased.
Yeah.
I messaged his former assistant interviewed in the past to pass on congratulations to Unai, and Imanol was going with him. I didn't ask. It's about being professional at all times because you are either professional. So I'm very pleased for him, and looking forward to the away fixture at Villa P there. But it should be a good one.
James, realistically, how far do you think, given time and respect, how far do you think Unai Emery can take the Aston Villa?
I think given time and respect, trophy, and have them fight in for potential Conference League participation. I think and Champions League is a little bit too far fetched, but to win a trophy in league, that could be possible. People love to get carried away and get one thing that needs to be remembered, and Arsenal fans need to remember it. The season of the Champions League left before it becomes a European Super League and everything that name. Access of European football will completely go on its head, where even the experts will have to react that they know that this is this, and I believe number 1 to 8, 9 to 16 plays a playoff round, but
Yeah.
as I've said before, we had our chance in 2006 and we blew it. Better chance in 2004 and we blew it. And I think that I've accepted we'll never win the Champions League. I've accepted that. And if it does happen where we qualify this year and we're excited to be proved wrong, but we've had so many chances where participation more than the actual winning of the thing, that you reap what you sow in that respect.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I can't, end the show again just highlighting somebody who should know better, Gary Lineker. And I communicate with James a lot throughout the week, and with Unai Emery, and even people coming to the live chat, even today, coming up and spending evening with a B. For me, it's so disrespectful. And what I do, James, I back them away. I remind them that the last time I checked, evening was spelt with a V. And Unai Emery, like you said, the first press conference he did was not in his mother tongue. It was done in English. So show the guy respect. Sorry, James.
Absolutely. And good evening. How many languages do they speak? And people might say it's a joke, but it's not funny.
Yeah.
It's not funny. As someone who's fluent, people now do not know the difference between me speaking in Dutch and speaking in English, because I am man enough to admit in the beginning I was rubbish, but hard work and persistence. My early days in this country, being told by people I'd give up if I was you, James. No, I ain't giving up now. And I maintain that Gary must have known during his, must have come unstuck, trying to explain something to someone. And I don't. You're talking about one of the finest strikers that England have ever produced. For it, there really is no need for it. And I just think that, this Gary Lineker, who will, if Unai Emery does well, you watch him speak one-on-one to Unai Emery. I'd love you to have the balls to then say good evening then.
Yeah. Good point, James.
Try and do it then. Really. But this is someone where if he wanted to address Unai, because Gary Lineker's Spanish is very good. And what Gary Lineker needs to realise, he was really an inspiration to people. A British player playing abroad, living in a language. What a life! What a life! It's inspiration to so many, and I just think with this, it really has. There was a great opportunity to kind of really, and I just find it hard to understand. Maybe I expected, maybe my expectations are too high, but we talk about British players wanting to go abroad. Don't be scared. I mean, we had that podcast where we were trying to people to learn foreign languages. The most important thing is to not be scared. Don't be scared. So you got to take. You're not going to win every single round, and some days you're going to get pummeled. But fighting on. Yeah. And if somebody is going to be taken down due to a mispronunciation, and if you lose confidence, you're on a slippery slope. So I hope that when Unai speaks to Gary on Match of the Day, that he will say, Gary, evening, and they can speak about it in his mother tongue, and leave that.
Yeah. Well, listen, we've finished on the dot. 30 minutes, James. These Thursday night conversations we have, I'm going to cherish them. Really, really good to speak to you. And whoever's watching now, again, guys, expect a lot more Thursday chats, Europa League. Although this one had a tint of this, that, and a little bit of the other. But in regards to Gary Lineker, I hope you're watching Gary Lineker, and you should know better. You should literally know better. And for those of you watching, come in live chat and type in evening with a B. I'm going to block you instantly because you guys should know better. But anyhow. James, sorry, go on, James. Yeah.
And also, if you're going to do that, please, if you're going to do it, please write in the second line of your sentence. Yeah, if you're going to do it, we want you to write good evening. Okay. All right, and then we'll have you on the show, and then you can show us how good you are, can't you?
That's a good point, James.
Yeah,
there you go. See the invitation. That's a good point,
yeah,
James. Yeah.
It's easy to hide behind. Show us who you are. You know, we were touching on hooliganism. Show us who you are.
Yeah.
It's very easy to hide behind a keyboard who you are, and I just think that we're in a time where people don't want to hear the opinion. Learn from other people. I don't know everything, but you know you have to. I've really enjoyed this segment, and very much looking forward to putting my language skills to be away on Thursday night, because they're not going to know the difference. They're probably going to think to explain to them in their mother tongue. Now, I was born in London, raised just outside, and I live in your country. So, will you please let me in? So that'll be very interesting to see how it goes.
Brilliant. And actually, on that note, we've come actually to an end to another Thursday night talk, debate discussion on Canon 40 TV. James, again, thank you for giving us your time. As always, really good sharing the time on this platform. The platform, Canon for the channel for Arsenal fans all over this world.